So all of these contributing factors result in us being not as healthy as we could be. And you mentioned genetics, but genetics actually play a really small part in illness.
Very small,
yeah, less than 2% they found when they did the Human Genome Project, that less than 2% of our genes are responsible for permanent coding. The rest of them are like dimmer switches that turn off or turn up and turn down. And then we could have a bunch of dimmer switches, genes, turning a certain way, which then turn on illness. So can turn on autoimmune conditions, can turn on diabetes and cancer and so on.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Wendy Myers of MyersDetox.com. Welcome to the Myers Detox podcast. On this show, we talk about everything related to heavy metal and chemical detoxification and a lot of the underlying root causes of so many health issues today. And you can go check out my website, MyersDetox.com, to join my newsletter. Lots of different places to opt in. You can take my heavy metals quiz at heavymetalsquiz.com, or you can download any of the free guides on my website to get on my email newsletter and learn all of the latest tips and tricks to detox your body and optimize your health. And today on the show, we have Jane Hogan. She is the wellness engineer, and she's going to be talking about how to become pain-free. I know so many of you guys deal with pain on a daily basis and pop, over-the-counter prescription medications, and just feel like you need to live with the chronic pain because you're not getting the answers as to the underlying root cause at your doctors. And so I dealt with chronic pain for so many years. I injured my back as soon as I had my baby, my daughter Winter. I injured my back the second I started working out again. I had never had weakness like that after having a child, and I just had always been fit, and injured my lower back and my piriformis muscle, and then had a bulging disc, and really took opiate medications and anti-inflammatories and physical therapy, and did so many things to manage the pain. And it's just very frustrating. And so I want to give you some great tips on the show today, like what kind of diet to eat, what kind of foods are really inflammatory, like gluten, dairy, nightshades, industrial seed oils. And not everyone are sensitive to these things. I mean, no one should eat industrial seed oils, but not everyone is sensitive to dairy and gluten and nightshades. So it's a matter about what works for you, and doing a food elimination diet. We also talk about a huge component, which is the mind-body connection and the underlying, emotional trauma that can contribute to pain, and more importantly, pain syndromes like fibromyalgia. We also talk about the autoimmune component, things like rheumatoid arthritis. We also talk a lot of different topics today related to pain. Super, super interesting. So stay tuned. So you guys listening, you're worried about toxins, and obviously heavy metals and chemicals are one of the underlying root causes of pain. And I wanted to help you guys with a simple quiz to determine your relative levels of your body burden of toxins. So you can take that quiz at heavymetalsquiz.com. It just takes a couple of minutes. After you take the quiz, you get a free video series that answers a lot of your frequently asked questions about detoxification. Just go check it out at heavymetalsquiz.com. So our guest today is Jane Hogan, and she's referred to as the wellness engineer, and she blends science and spirituality to help people release chronic pain using the mind, body, and breath so they can become empowered creators of their own health. Her personal experience of reversing crippling rheumatoid arthritis using natural solutions inspired her to leave a 30-year engineering career and become a functional medicine certified health coach, a certified yoga instructor, and a wellness educator. Combining ancient wisdom with leading-edge science, Jane's Wellness by Design blueprint has helped hundreds of people release chronic pain naturally. She's also the host of the Wellness by Design podcast, and she's also been published in Thrive Global and Elephant Journal magazines. You can learn more about Jane and her work at janehoganhealth.com. Jane, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Wendy, thank you so much for having me. I'm absolutely delighted to be on your show and share what I've learned with your audience.
Yeah. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about your story and how you got into into the health field?
Yeah, well, I was an engineer for 30 years, and 2016, I'd had like a really stressful year. The year before, my mother had died suddenly, and I had to deal with, well, my grief because she was my best friend, and also deal with the house and so on. And so on the tail end of that, I started getting this joint pain, like really bad. It would have to go, like my shoulder would hurt and my arm would have to go in a sling, and it just was really terrible. And I thought that once all this stress was over and I had a little vacation, I would be okay, but I wasn't. I got worse. And within about 3 months of like the first symptom showing up, I was barely able to walk, and
Mm.
I couldn't squeeze shampoo out of the bottle. I got stuck in the bathroom because I couldn't turn the door handle. It was really bad. I just felt like my life was like out of control, and I was afraid for the future because I just didn't know what was going on, and nothing was showing up in my blood work. And so it was kind of scary. I actually had a moment though, like when I was kind of at my worst, that like I don't know if it was like my soul talking to me or what it was, but I felt like this knowing that I was going to figure it out, and I would be fine. My life was not meant to be in pain like that. And I would also be telling people about it. So that was sort of in the back of my mind, but I still didn't know what was going on. And then my doctor, she was a conventional doctor, but she surprisingly said, sometimes food can be related to joint pain, gluten and dairy. And so I was like, what? Thought that was crazy. But I cut out gluten and dairy and sugar, cold turkey. And within about 5 days, you're probably not surprised to hear this, Wendy, but within about 5 days, I had so much less pain that I went from like feeling like a victim to feeling empowered. And that just kind of took me on a whole route of learning about functional medicine, about lifestyle, about toxins, and all these other things. And then over the years, I would get better and I would plateau a little bit and then discover something else and then keep on going like that. And eventually realize that actually it was when I was doing my functional medicine health coach training. Every month we had a topic on mind body medicine. And I really started to learn about the power of the mind, the power of our thoughts. And so that took me to another whole level. And now I realize that it's, between stress coming from our thoughts and toxins, these are the things that lead to illness. So anyway, eventually I reversed it and just decided I really wanted to tell people about this. And so I left my engineering career, became the wellness engineer, and here I am now.
Yeah, I love that. I love the wellness engineer. It's so cute.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and I think I really like your story because I think so many people don't realize the connection between their emotional life and their emotional trauma and
Mhm.
and how that expresses physically in their body. Because the research does show that there's a very famous ACEs study that
Oh, yeah.
67% of physical health issues are due to emotional traumas, and certainly losing a loved one falls in
Mhm.
that category. And can you talk a little about that and just what the research shows about this mind body connection to the pain that you're experiencing?
I think there's so much research with showing this connection, and so many practitioners have written about it. Like the Body Keeps the Score is such a great book by oh my goodness,
Professor
Bessel
Van der
Vanderkolk.
Kolk. Yes.
That is such an amazing book, and so many others. And we know, for example, in terms of the power of the mind, that the placebo effect comes into play 30% of the time. So we know that there's a mind component. But coming back to the stress and trauma, definitely. I mean, I can see it in my own clients that there's some event that kind of triggers their pain and can continue to trigger their pain. But also, what I learned is that it was not, this was like the tipping point, right? The like kind of the bucket completely filled up. And then the one last thing just couldn't take anymore. It was really, when I looked back on it, it was a lifestyle, really, a whole life of, perfectionism and people pleasing. And why was I doing that? What's behind that? Is usually a feeling of not feeling good enough. And I realized I didn't have like the capital T trauma, in the ACEs score, like really severe trauma, but I had some trauma that was just like an older sibling teased me. But when I was little, I stuttered as a result of that. So in my little world, it was obviously traumatic for me. And so I grew out of it, but I still had that trauma. It still sits in your subconscious mind. And so I think all of it kind of came up again too when my mother died, because she was sort of my protector, And so I think I see it all as a gift. I don't look back on it and go, how mean, that shouldn't have happened. Because of course that creates more stress in our body. So I look back at everything as being a beautiful gift that brought me actually to a better version of myself, and to the work that I'm doing now, and to speaking to you right in this moment. So none of that would have happened if I didn't have all of these life experiences. So I actually see the whole thing as gifts now.
Yes. Yeah. The wake up call to like what your body's crying for help. And, and so you mentioned, gluten, dairy were contributing. And, the research also shows that it really physical health issues, it's really only 20% diet and lifestyle. And the remainder is, some genetics, and the vast majority of physical health issues and pain syndromes, fibromyalgia, et cetera, are from emotional trauma. But can you talk a little bit about the diet and lifestyle aspect that contributes to pain?
Yeah, I mean, look at our lifestyles. We're in a constant stress state, and because we're in a stress state, and that comes from just the way we live, the way we work, the way we do everything. We've got, notifications going off all the time. This creates stress in our life, stress in our mind, stress in our body then. And so then when we are stressed, things aren't working as well. So maybe we could have tolerated gluten, but because our digestive system is not working so well because we're in the stress state, now it doesn't. We don't sleep as well because the endocrine system isn't working as well. So then we're not sleeping. We get aches and pains in our muscles and joints because our musculoskeletal system isn't working so well. Our detox pathways aren't working so well. So I think the lifestyle, it still comes back to the stress. Now, of course, looking at food, what we call food these days, a lot of it is not real food. It's heavily processed and it's got a lot of toxins and chemicals in it, as you know. And so these are contributing. So all of these contributing factors result in us being not as healthy as we could be. And you mentioned genetics, but genetics actually play a really small part in illness.
Very small.
Like, yeah, less than 2% they found when they did the human genome project, that less than 2% of our genes are responsible for permanent coding. The rest of them are like dimmer switches that turn off or turn up and turn down. And then we could have a bunch of dimmer switches, genes, turning a certain way, which then turn on illness. So can turn on autoimmune conditions, can turn on diabetes and cancer and so on. So yeah, lifestyle plays a huge role. But it's also our how we feel about our lifestyle that plays a huge role.
Yeah, absolutely. And, since some of the foods that are, big causes of pain issues are nightshades. Can you talk a little bit about that? And a lot of people, they don't make that connection between their joint pain and eating a tomato.
Yeah, I know. It's funny. It must be hard for you in Mexico with all those nightshades that are used down there.
Well, I'm not sensitive to nightshades,
okay.
but some people are. Some people are very sensitive to them, and I'm not. But people with pain
Lucky you.
syndromes can be, you know?
A lot of people with joint pain, when they've studied it, they say that, so it's the nightshade vegetables, the tomatoes, potatoes, peppers, eggplant are the common ones, but it's also, what people don't realize, the spices that are made from those, right? So chili powder, cayenne pepper, curry powder, and those kinds of things. Yeah, a lot of people with joint pain do find that nightshades bother them. And also, it can depend on whether those nightshades are eaten raw or cooked. So, for me personally, I can't eat raw tomatoes. They will aggravate joint pain, but cooked tomatoes are fine. Go figure. So I would say sometimes I wonder, Wendy, too, you know, if someone is told that nightshades could be a problem for them, do then nightshades become a problem for them? Like, how
Yeah,
much does
yeah.
our mind play?
Yeah, I mean, your mind, whatever you believe, that's your reality for sure.
Exactly. So I would say test it out. Like just test it out for yourself and see how you do with it. And or maybe tell yourself I'm fine with them, and maybe you will be fine. Yeah, but there is that correlation. So it's something definitely worth testing out to see if for you if they're a problem.
Yeah, and if you eat an inflammatory diet, you're eating industrial seed oils, which is very easy
Oh,
to get a lot of those. Those are super inflammatory,
yeah.
and those are going to cause problems. Can you explain that a little bit? I mean, like for me, I used to go eat at Whole Foods, and they had this like food bar. I'd be so excited, and I'm eating healthy food, but it wasn't organic. But you know, and then you look at the ingredients; it's made with canola oil, which is
Yeah.
an industrial seed oil. What's the problem with that?
Yeah. Those industrial seed oils, for me, they're kryptonite. They're probably worse than gluten. So the industrial seed oils, the problem with them is that they're heavily processed. They're already oxidized. So a lot of people know that oxidative stress in their body isn't good. So here we are. If we eat those, we're adding, free radicals already, creating oxidative stress in our body. So I like to use just olive oil, an organic one. So extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil is great, and avocado oil. They're sort of my three go-to oils that I know are good for me.
Now, can you list the bad ones?
Okay, canola oil, safflower oil. See if I can remember them all. Cottonseed oil,
What's in a lot of processed
corn
foods?
oil. There's the C ones.
Yes.
Coconut's good, but yeah, those ones are bad. That's all I can remember off the top of my head right
Yeah.
now.
And then there's like the soybean oil. I think you
Yeah,
said that. Soybean.
I did,
There's the
but
vegetable oil, just the plain old vegetable
yeah,
oil. Super
plain old
bad.
vegetable. What the heck is it?
Yeah.
Soy in general, the problem with it is there's a lot of GMO products used in soy and corn, and then because of that they're heavily sprayed, and then we get the chemicals along with it. So I'd be very careful about corn and soy in general,
And then the
just because
safflower and grapeseed are really
a
not
grape
that
seed,
great
that's another
either.
one.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
sounds kind of healthy. And I know there's
yeah,
some brands that have organic ones, like Spectrum has organic grapeseed, but it just goes rancid really, really quickly, and that will cause
exactly.
you
Yeah,
inflammation, whether it's organic or not.
yeah.
Yeah.
And Wendy, food in general, when you think about any foods that have a long shelf life, probably have something in them that stops bacteria from growing. So if it stops bacteria from growing, then, well, that's not going to be so good in our belly or in our digestive system, because we have bacteria that we need there, right? And so we don't want to stop it from growing. So yeah, those foods with a long shelf life generally, and just depending on what it is, but that's something I watch out for and be careful about. We just want to give our body the best that we can. It's our one vehicle to get through life, right? And people treat their cars better than they treat their bodies. Yeah, like you'd never think of putting crappy gasoline or some gasoline substitute in the car and expect it to
Never,
run well,
never.
right?
I was for
But
the
yet we do
premium.
stuff like that with our bodies all the time.
Yeah, yeah, and it's amazing. And a lot of people just kind of aren't paying attention until they have some major breakdown in their body.
Yeah,
They get a diagnosis, and that you don't want to wait. That's like a decades
yeah,
or more process going on
exactly.
before you get a diagnosis. And for some people, it's really tough to turn that ship around. And so let's talk a little bit about I mean, is there anything else you want to talk about in like root causes of pain?
Well, I would say the toxins are a big one as well. Chemical toxins,
Oh yeah, those.
cleaners, household, yeah, household products, EMF, right? So there's a lot of those. So I would say the two broad categories of root causes are stress and toxins, kind of the two big categories. So the toxins can be coming from the food, they can be coming from the air, they can be coming from, the energetic environment through EMFs, they could be coming through what we put on our skin, those what's in the water, the plastics that we drink our water from, not me, but or you probably, but other people. So yeah, we're just generally exposed to so many chemicals, and our bodies, I mean, they do a really, really good job of dealing with them, but over time it gets harder and harder. So we need to help our body out. And when we have pain or illness, it's really just the body talking to us to say, hey, I need some help here. Pay attention.
Can you talk about EMFs and how those contribute to pain?
Well, we are energetic beings. Okay. Quantum physics tells us that we are made of energy. So even though we don't think of ourselves that way, we really are made of energy. So we respond to energy. So when we've got these, and of course there's frequencies that we thrive in, and there's other frequencies that aren't so good for us. So there's electromagnetic frequencies, EMFs, or that can create, or they have frequencies that aren't good for us. And so it throws us off. Like if we're meant to be at a certain frequency, and actually all of our parts of us, our organs all have their own frequencies. So when they stay in those frequencies, we're healthy. But if we've got these other interfering frequencies, then they're not going to operate as well. So then we're going to get sick. If our systems aren't operating well, then they're not functioning the way they should. And so we can get sick.
And so let's talk about some solutions. Okay. So you're hosting a new summit on pain. I think this is so important because so many people are dealing with pain and are just taking pain medications and really doing them a huge disservice. And not only that, but people who actually need like opiate medications now they don't have as much access to them. Doctors are very reluctant in the United States to prescribe them even when needed. And I've seen this happen to several friends, and it's devastating, really. And so, there's a time and a place, but there's also, more importantly, you want to get to the root cause of what's causing your pain. And so you're hosting a summit called Becoming Pain-Free, Healing the Root Causes of Chronic Pain. Can you tell us about that and some of the speakers on the summit?
Sure. Thank you for asking. I really wanted this summit to be all the things that took me years to figure out all in one place. I wanted other people's healing journey to be speeded up because it did take me years, right? So I wanted to be faster. So I wanted to gather the people that had helped me, and even people that I didn't know about when I started my journey. So I'm really excited about it, Wendy. We've got such amazing speakers. There's 48 speakers, people that are really at the top of their game in terms of helping people get out of pain. And we're covering so many different modalities. The first day is all about hope in the big picture. And then we move into energy, talking about energy and how we are energetic beings and how we can get that energy flowing in a way that's healing. And we look at mind body medicine, the gut brain heart connection, and that is so interesting how we're all interconnected. And we also look at the role of the neck, the back, and posture. That whole spinal cord plays a huge role in how we perceive pain throughout our body. And even just like really simple things like changing the position of your head can change the amount of pain you feel in your body. And then we've got another whole day where we've got different people talking about all I would call complementary therapies like sound healing. I don't know if you've heard of Geraldine Glass. She's got these beautiful crystal alchemy singing bowls, and they vibrate at these beautiful, beautiful harmonies, and they're very healing for the body. And EFT tapping and traditional Chinese medicine and Feldenkrais. And then we got another whole day that's dedicated to specific pain conditions. So I've got experts in, for example, fibromyalgia and Lyme disease and autoimmune and arthritis and more. So really, it's such a broad and then deep in some areas as well. And one thing I really love is that many of the speakers did like a little experiential session so that the attendees can participate and then get a little taste of, well, what does this one feel like when I do this breathing exercise, for example, or this experience, this sound healing, or do this tapping routine, and so on. So yeah, really excited. We got Bruce Lipton is speaking. He's the father of epigenetics and talks about the role of consciousness and how that the subconscious mind plays into our body and how to heal it.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Because I think Bruce Lipton is like one of the highest vibe people on the planet. I'm such a huge fan of his. Can you talk a little bit about what he speaks about on the summit?
Yeah, so he's talking about consciousness and the subconscious mind, especially, and how that subconscious mind creates the body, and how our cells, like literally right down to the tiny little cells, respond to our thoughts. And so our cells, they're so smart, really, and so their environment, part of the cell's environment is our internal environment, and our thoughts create feelings and vibrations in the body. So he talked about that. He talked about how to reprogram the subconscious mind and some little tools on how to do that. He talked about muscle testing too. I think the best explanation of muscle testing I've ever heard. So that is really quite interesting. I don't know if your audience is familiar with muscle testing.
No, I'm sure a lot of them are.
Okay.
Sure.
So it's basically, yeah, tapping into your internal wisdom to get answers on what works for you. Well, answers on anything really. And so, but he explained it in a way, it's not woo-woo. Like I kind of used to think it was a little bit woo-woo, like, ooh, how does this happen? But he talks about it very scientifically about why it works and how the subconscious mind is coming into play in that. So it's really quite interesting. He's an absolutely lovely man.
Yeah, I love him to death. Yeah, and I mean, the human body is so fascinating. There's so many different natural ways to approach pain relief and address the underlying root cause of that. And you talk a lot about breath work, and what is the kind of the tie-in between like using breath work and energy work and tapping into your consciousness to try to address pain?
Well, when we think of pain, we're thinking of a physical body, but of course we are more than a physical body. We have our mind, which is like, where is the mind? Is it in our head? Is it out? Like, where is it, right? But we got our body, we got our mind, and we've got a bigger version of ourselves. Some people call it spirit or higher self or whatever, but to me, it's represented by the breath. The breath is what connects it all. If you think about it, we start our life with our first breath, we end our life with our last breath, and in between we're breathing. And with the breath, it's one of those autonomic functions that we can also control, right? It's kind of hard for us to control our heartbeat unless we, get moving, or other aspects like digestion. We can't say, all right, release a little bit of bile now, or, we're not doing any of that. All of that happens automatically with our subconscious mind is running the whole show. But with our breath, we can change it. And with our breath, we can change the body, right? We can make actual changes to our body. And with the breath, we can make changes in our mind. We can still our mind and create the calm. So to me, the breath is just connects it all. And it's the fastest way to get your body into that healing state, that the parasympathetic state, the rest, digest, repair. That's where we should be most of the time. And it's certainly the only place where we can heal, as compared to the sympathetic state, which is our stress state, the fight, flight, fear state. So to get out of that state, the quickest way to do it is with the breath. And the breath is an amazing detox pathway as well. Some people say it's the number one detox pathway in the body. So yeah, the breath can be used to still the mind and get us into that calm place. And the breath can also be used to help relax us, like even for digestion. So just getting calm, deep breaths can help you eat food and then digest it and absorb nutrients better. So, and the breath is free. It's totally portable. It's the ultimate portable device, right? We've always got it with us, totally within our control. And so easy, I say easy for people to implement once they start creating an awareness about how they're breathing. Because a lot of us, we started as beautiful breathers when we were babies. And then through our life experiences and perhaps like posture and things like that, we turn into mouth breathers and chest breathers and rapid breathers. And so it can take a little bit of practice to get us back to the belly breathing, nice long breaths and breathing through our nose.
Can you talk more about how the breath helps with detoxification?
Yeah. So first of all, the breath is how we detox. Carbon dioxide is a detox product, right? So first of all, it takes that away from every single cell in our body. Also, I always find this really funny, Wendy, and that is we've got this microbiome in our gut, 3 to 5 pounds of it. Those microorganisms, they've all got their own respiration, right? So they're excreting gases, which we have to breathe out. They can't do it. They're inside of us. So we have to breathe it out. And in fact, I had small intestine bacterial overgrowth at one point, and the test for that is a breath test. What they're measuring is the gases that are produced by the bacteria. So that's another way, like we are actually breathing out for them, though they're toxic gases. And then also when we breathe properly, like using the diaphragm, which we typically refer to as belly breathing. It's not that we're breathing into the belly, we're breathing into our lower lungs, which causes the diaphragm to move down. But this moving diaphragm helps all of our organs work better, and it helps the lymphatic system as well. The lymphatic system's like the sewer system of the body, and it doesn't have its own pump. And so movement, there's other ways we can get it pumping. You can actually manipulate your body and dry brushing and moving, but breathing properly helps with that as well. And just when we get enough oxygen to all of our organs, like the liver and so on, it can do its job, right? So it just opens up all of these detoxification pathways.
Yeah, I love how you explain that. Just very simple and elegant. So tell us, where can we learn more about your Becoming Pain-Free Summit? What URL do we go to?
It is painfree.byhealthmeans.com. And I think that would take you there, actually.
Okay, great. So painfree.healthmeans.com.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. And so everyone go check out the summit. If you are experiencing any type of pain, because there's a lot more to addressing it than the information you're getting at your medical doctors. Because for me, I suffered from back pain for years. And the only thing that was really offered to me was, physical remedies. Here's some opiates and physical therapy. And I spent about 2 years in physical therapy for my lower back and multiple doctors. And it was just really traumatic. And, you lose a lot of your choices in life and you're limited in what you can do physically. And so, I like to provide a lot of solutions and ideas for people to pursue when it comes to pain. So Jane, thanks so much for tuning in and coming on the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And there's a back pain specialist on the summit.
Oh, great.
Thanks so much for having me on this show, Wendy. And I'm really enjoyed the opportunity to share the summit with your audience and invite them to come along. And I know it's going to change some lives, so I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, so everyone, thanks for tuning in. I'm Dr. Wendy Myers of MyersDetox.com. And every week, I love to bring you experts from around the world to help you get to those underlying root causes of why, you're maybe not meeting your health goals, with all the things that you're doing and trying, all the money you're spending, because you deserve to feel good. And I want to help you achieve that goal. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you guys very soon.
The Myers Detox Podcast is created and hosted by Wendy Myers. This podcast is for information purposes only. Statements and views expressed on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Wendy Myers and the producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guests' qualifications or credibility. Individuals on this podcast may have direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.